Hey, what's up, guys? It's Thursday, April 23rd, 2026, and this is episode number two of Weird Friends. Our first episode, we dove into the JFK assassination and some of the different theories and conspiracies that float around with that one. For episode two, I brought in some reinforcements. I brought in my common sense superhero partner, David Smith. And we're going to pepper Matt Sheffield here with a little bit of his conspiracy theory knowledge on outer space, UFOs, aliens, and anything out of this world. So, Matt, we appreciate you taking the time to join in on a second episode of Weird Friends. I think I was able to follow along with the JFK thing. I think everything you said was processable and made sense to me. So I'm still waiting on you to drop a bomb on me that even I can't handle.
Well,
The first
well,
bomb is going to be a frozen internet.
there we go. And that's weird because we just got supposedly blazing fast new internet here. So
I don't think they've had any
I'm just
improvement since
saying,
3G. I think they've just been lying to us.
you start talking about this stuff and the stuff starts messing up. I'm just not a coincidence, my friends. Not a coincidence. Lyndon Johnson's coming back from the grave. He's pissed off that Matt said that he killed JFK. That's what happened.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. At least I just hope it catches me in a good pose when it freezes again. Usually gets me in some awkward ones.
Picking your nose. That ain't what you don't. That's what you don't want.
Yeah.
The sad thing is, a long dead Lyndon Johnson still probably has more power and political pull than three of us combined.
I am shocked that y'all talked about Lyndon Johnson, and I don't recall the point where y'all talked about the fact that my man is seriously packing to the point where he had to call the Dockers company and get him to expand his crotch area down to the bunghole. That's actually on audio of him saying, "I need a little more space around my bunghole."
I thought that was normal.
That's not normal in my world. And big old Lyndon Johnson's swinging that big Texas D, it might be normal, but
Hey,
not.
everything's bigger in Texas.
I'm just saying that's funny video, funny audio.
It
So
is.
Matt, this obviously lines up pretty well with a lot of what's been talked about. There was the recent supposed forced release of some more UFO or now that's, I guess, unidentifying aerial phenomenon, UAPs or whatever they're calling it now.
Stupid.
But to my knowledge, nothing came out, nothing earth shattering. We're all still here. Nobody's been beamed up and talked to Scotty yet. So share something with us. What's out there? What are we missing?
Well, first of all, I mean, full disclosure on this, I never used to be interested in aliens. I thought they were silly. Like, growing up as a
Same.
kid, a lot of people were like, a lot of my friends were into aliens, and that was kind of part of the horror genre, type thing. I was never into that. I was a, pretty classic movie monster guy, but never an aliens guy. I never thought they existed. I just didn't. And it was for a lot of different reasons, religious reasons, just the fact that it's always like the guy, the farmer, that's got a meth lab in his chicken coop in Arkansas that sees one, at 3 a.m. Not
I
super
don't recall
credible.
the last Harvard graduate to have had an alien abduction story.
No, but now they are. Like now it's getting crazy. So I'm of two minds on this, to be honest. I think I saw a great meme that said I believed in aliens until the government told me they were real. So, you know, I, I think it could be very much real. I think it could be very much a psyop also. I don't I don't know. I mean, I think the odds probably lean toward it being real, just when you consider the vastness of the universe, everything we don't know about the universe. I think it's very low percentage that we're the only people here or the only life forms, intelligent life forms in the galaxy, or in other galaxies in the universe. Now, whether they can get to us or not, that's always kind of been the story, right? Have they evolved, so to speak, technologically in a different way or a faster way than we have, or are they just so much older than us that they've reached a different level than we have? There's also the theory that they actually are us from a previous civilization that
What was that
escaped
movie with
with
Roddy Piper?
huh?
That movie with Roddy Piper? What was that?
Yeah,
They?
yeah. What is it? Um,
Where they put the glasses on and you see who the real aliens are? Damn good
yeah,
movie. Might have been ahead of her game, ahead of the
might have been.
time.
Well, I think you touched on something with, I think we have to all readily admit we don't know near enough of what we should know about our own planet. And when you think about what we know to be the expansive immenseness that is the rest of the universe, I think you're right. I think to assume that we are the only potential life form out there would be absolutely asinine.
Yeah, for sure. It as I've gotten older and especially like going through and Greg knows because we know each other, have known each other for a long time. Getting a bad medical diagnosis, you kind of think things probably aren't going to turn out too well for you. Uh,
Did
that
you go skydiving?
yeah,
I went
it would have
skydiving.
been more fun. No,
I
I
went
didn't.
UFO believing. I went.
Yeah, no, but that shifted my entire mindset about things, and one of the things that kind of came out about that is it kind of drives me crazy now when people are so dogmatic about what they believe because you don't know. Like nobody knows. And it drives me up the wall when somebody, and I've got a very good friend of mine that's very, traditional, and I'm not speaking ill of any religion or anything like that, but like a super small church up in the mountains, like old school, kind of like
Please
I
tell
grew
me.
up in.
Please tell me he's handling snakes and taking
It's not
strychnine.
not
Oh,
quite,
that's
but
they
it's
up
getting
here.
close. No, it's
They
getting
up here
close.
in these mountains, big dog. They up here.
Now there's some foot washing going on and all kind like it's old school. And I'm like, well, cool, I get it. Like I get that. But like, man, like leave a little room in your mind for something that you may not understand. And so many people don't do that, whether it's with a religion, whether it's with politics, with anything. And this is one of those things. And like again, like I talked about with Greg earlier, I talk about a lot of this with my family that is like my in-laws are very, very straight-laced. Like my brother-in-law is amazing and awesome, but we always give him a hard time because we're like, oh, where do you shop at, Wasps or Us? Because he's like the quarter zip, you know, got my White Claw and my quarter zip, kind of guy. I'm going, I'm going to go play around the golf and this kind of thing. Like again, super nice guy, love him to death, and very, very blessed to have him.
What Haley wants Greg to be. Go ahead. I'm listening.
There you go. But again, like just never considered any of these things, like the moon landing, extraterrestrials, anything like that. Like it just doesn't fit within the box of normalcy, I guess, that he lives in, and that I think most people live in. So again, that's a long rant to say when I started down this path, I was kind of like that. I was like, well, that's silly. But the older I've gotten, and then when you kind of have a life changing experience where you're like, oh my God, I don't know anything. And what's scary is nobody else does either.
Welcome to my world. I've experienced that every day where I don't feel like I know anything, and it keeps happening.
Yeah, it's like I told my wife, I was like, if I knew, like I thought when I became a parent, I would know stuff. Like I thought my parents knew stuff. They didn't know anything.
They're just as dumb as we are.
Dude,
Ain't that
we're
what you
just
learn?
faking it. We're totally faking it. We don't know what's
Everybody's
going
faking
on.
it.
Yeah. But anyway, so starting with the alien thing, aliens are big now. Big. The disclosure movement's going on. There's a lot of great podcasts out there about it. Jeremy Corbell is a big guy in the movement. He's been doing it for years. Um, uh, he's got a great podcast out there. There's a bunch of them. So a few years ago, a lot of whistleblowers started coming forward. David Grush was kind of like the first one to come forward, right? And these are like legitimate uh, government people, pilots, or in the intelligence agencies, and they are starting to say that, listen, we do have actually, physically testified in front of Congress. It says, and they said that we have crash retrieval ships, and they're termed non-human biologics, which fancy word so you don't say aliens, but we've got alien bodies.
Do you think that's why they changed the UFOs to UAPs? So because UFO has a stigma behind it, where you're like, here we go.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
they changed it. I'm a little upset they changed it. I still like using UFOs.
I go with UFOs.
Yeah,
I go with
good stuff
UFOs.
right there. UAP. I'm like, what the hell? That sounds like something I get after a Saturday night at the club or something.
That's something Greg brought back from
I wish
Vegas.
I got it. I don't get it. Yeah.
But no, and I mentioned in the first podcast, in college. I got addicted to a late night AM talk radio show called Coast to Coast AM, and I know a lot of people have heard about it. It would come on at like midnight, and it would run till like 3 or 4 in the morning, and it was just crazy
Were you
shit.
an over-the-road trucker in college?
No, I would just sit up and listen to it, man. And it'd be like, I told Greg, again, the last episode, the host was such a nice guy because he would have 2 phone numbers, one for east of the Rockies, one for west of the Rockies. And he would say, east of the Rockies, you're live, and it would be some crazy guy that's like, well, Art, his name was Art Bell. Art, I've been a werewolf for the past 25 years. And he wouldn't make fun of him. He'd be like, oh, that's
He would believe it,
interesting.
yeah.
Tell me how that happened. But
We
anyway,
talked about it a little bit on the last episode. I politely informed Matt that during my time in Athens, Georgia, at no point between midnight and 3 or 4 a.m. was I listening to AM radio.
There was a
I had
werewolf
a different
involved.
college experience.
There was a werewolf involved, but it was not that kind.
yeah, we had a
That's
different
why
line.
Matthew's a smart one. That's why he knows all this stuff and we don't. Because he was listening to Art Bell on Coast to Coast.
Smart and
West of the
obsessed.
Rockies, you're live with me. I don't know why I did a Larry King impersonation, but that's what I envisioned. Is that where Bob Lazar was founded? Like where he got
There you
popular?
go. That's where we're
Coast to
going.
Coast?
So that's where I first heard about Bob Lazar. Greg, have you heard about Bob Lazar?
I have not. Did he play sports?
All right.
Oh, you missing out on Bob Lazar, dog.
So Bob Lazar, and he's actually making the rounds right now on the podcast circuit, which is very rare.
Big on
He
Rogan.
has very rarely spoke publicly about this since he came out in '89 and blew the whistle. And he said, "I'm a scientist that worked at S4, which is Area 51 area out there." And he said, I worked on reverse engineering spacecraft. And so he was like the first. He was the grandfather of it all. And he started telling them about how he got this job. So he's kind of an out there guy. Like he took his wife's Honda Civic back in the 80s. And back then a Civic was not, it was even smaller than it is now. It's like a Matchbox car. And he put a jet engine on it. And that's what he would drive to work every day. And so he kind of,
Pretty fast.
yeah, he got this reputation. He said he got up to 215 miles an hour. I don't know. That's what he said. But so he had this reputation of kind of being an off the wall, outside the box thinker. Well, he applies around for some jobs and stuff. Long story short, I'll cut out all the backstory, but basically he gets hired on at Area 51 or S4, and they bring him in, and he sees a UFO, like a very stereotypical round saucer shaped. He calls it the sport model. That's what he named it. And he walks into this hangar. It's there, and it's got an American flag on it, decal on the side. And he goes, "Oh, it's one of ours." Like that's what everybody's seeing now. Now it makes sense. All this was our technology. Then he gets to noticing there's no seams. There's no seams at all on the craft. And this is, again, remember, way decades before 3D printing technology, anything like that. So he can't figure out how they make it. So they pair him up with a scientist there that was a partner of his that worked on the project. And he goes through this whole story about how they worked for years and years on trying to figure out what this was, how it worked, this, that, and the other. And basically, again, the thumbnail sketch of it is they got to the point where they figured out that this ship was basically creating a bubble around itself that made it impervious to the atmosphere. So there's no friction, there's no gravity, there's no G-force, there's nothing. And
had
so
a force field. Just say force field.
Yeah,
That's
it's like a
Greg's
force
Greg
field.
knows force field from He-Man. That's what he knows it from.
Hey, I love He-Man. We'll go off that rabbit trail later. But
They're
so they
coming out
figured
with a
out,
live action one. I can't wait.
yeah, it's gonna be
I
good.
did see
It's
it.
gonna be excellent.
Oh, it's
I
gonna be
hope.
woke as hell. You
I
know.
hope. Yeah.
It'll be pretty
Yeah.
stupid, but it's still in my heart. I want to love it because nostalgia for He-Man is where it's at. And I even like the Dolph Lundgren one. I thought that was good. I was like, "What the hell is Drago doing as He-Man?" But he was.
Well, I did too. It was his own thing, but I liked it.
Yeah.
So they figured out that that's how it would travel. And we normally think of a classic saucer-shaped disc just moving, horizontally across, whatever the sky. But he said it would actually turn, and it would stick up and then move across where the bottom of the craft was actually going forward. And he said that it was propelled by an element 115. And everybody for years thought he was crazy because that element doesn't exist. And we have no way of making it. Well, a few years after that, actually more than a few years, probably late 90s, early 2000s, they figured out how to make element 115. Now they can make it supposedly in very small batches, and it basically lasts for a few seconds and then it's gone.
Is it true that the first little bit they made, they were only able to make 1.21 gigawatts of it?
And if it only lasts a few seconds, I think I can make some element 115.
There you go.
Have to rename it.
All right. I'll leave that alone. I was going to say something. I'll leave that alone. So as time has progressed, all the details that Bob Lazar has said have kind of been vindicated to a large degree. And one of them was when David Grush was instrumental in releasing the very first video of the UFO, and I'm assuming both of y'all have seen it, but it's basically just a radar screen. It was the first one that came out probably 2, 3, 4 years ago. And they're tracking this UFO on a fighter jet's radar, and it was a disc shaped. All of a sudden it turned, and the bottom of the disc was moving forward. It moved exactly like Bob Lazar said. So it's just so weird, man, that you can have a story that you've told over and over since 1989 and it never changes. Like you never screw up a detail. And he will say this, I'm going to tell you this and it makes no sense. I'm just telling you what I saw. And then years down the road, decades down the road, the thing that makes no sense starts to fall into place. So he was really, like I said, the first whistleblower. So we go from Bob Lazar all the way through the 90s. You have the X-Files, you have pop culture that has UFOs ingrained in it, extraterrestrials ingrained, but it's still a silly thing, a very silly thing that nobody really believes in. And then all of a sudden, like I said, a few years back, you started to have these whistleblowers come out, testify under oath in front of Congress. Tim Burchett is a congressman from Tennessee. He's super on board with it. He is in fact, he came out last week and he said, if the general public saw what I saw, it would set the world on fire, was his exact quote.
Well,
Greg,
and I think that for all of the malicious stuff we've all had to deal with, and we're all very well aware of that has come from the internet and social media and all that stuff, this is the one avenue I think where social media and the internet really provides us as normal people some element of being able to get to the truth ultimately. because there's just too hard to hide things and keep secrets these days because so many more people are having access to things, and so many more of us will see a Tim Burchett clip like that and then start digging down those rabbit holes where 20 or 30 years ago he would have made that comment to a handful of reporters and nobody would have acted on it. But now something like that can go viral, and I'm like, yeah, like Tim Burchett is one of those people that I follow that guy. I listen to that guy. I trust that guy as much as I can trust a man I've never sat across a table from, looked in the eye or shook his hand. I believe Tim Burchett tells the truth as far as I can tell. And if he's saying stuff like that, there's some credibility there.
Well, I think the credibility comes from when it stops being Bubba in the middle of the desert saying he got anally probed, and you got fighter jet guys going, "Hey, I can't explain it, but I'm just telling you what I saw. I have no idea what this is. We've never seen nothing move like it." So the legitimacy of these claims have gotten big, and like you said, with the testimonies that are taking place, it ain't people that you think are just crazy. It's common, really do-gooder folks, and you're like, okay, well, maybe there is something to this.
Well,
Yeah, it's
and
wild.
at this point, whether you choose to believe it is, aliens or otherworldly life forms, as we've all kind of previously assumed it is, there's clearly something happening and some stuff out there that we have no explanation for, and right now don't have the ability to even comprehend.
Yeah, something's going on. There's no doubt about that. And so, one of the things that where it gets really weird, right, is one of the things Bob Lazar said on his last podcast was the craft that he worked on was very old. It was from basically antiquity, and it was recovered in the ocean. So originally, when I first started getting interested in this, people would talk about underwater UFOs. And I was like, well, you can't do that. That's weird. You've got the water. But the more comes out, like the bubble around the craft, they're not moving through the water. It's a transmedium property that the craft has. The water has no drag, no friction, no resistance against the craft.
Haven't there been witnesses to specifically state that they've seen them transition from water to airborne maneuver without any change or deviance in their maneuverability or anything? It's like going from water to air has no impact at all.
Yeah, and there was recently a Navy, I can't remember his rank, but he was high up, and he said that they tracked an object the size of a football field under the ocean that was moving about 400 miles an hour under the water. Just impossible for us.
Good gosh.
Absolutely impossible for us. And so there's something there, but it almost, so maybe we should go through like kind of the theories of what it could be, because it gets really squirrely when you start really looking at it on a deep level, because it goes into being able to communicate telepathically. It goes into, well, maybe they're not interplanetary, maybe they're interdimensional. Then you get, people that are super religious that are coming in and saying, well, they're demons. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe. And I know Tucker Carlson says that. Full disclosure, I love Tucker. I think he's fantastic, but I don't think an angel or a demon needs a metal spaceship. And that's always been my retort to that. Like, okay, cool, I get your point, but I don't think you need a metal ship. Like, I don't think they use those. And if we do have them in our possession or actively reverse engineering those, then they came from somewhere, and I don't think it came from heaven or hell.
Yeah, I bet St. Peter's got like a G5 or a GT. He's riding in some style, is all I'm saying.
I was just thinking the logic is sound, but the one flaw, and I was thinking more like truly scripturally. In his last arrival into Jerusalem, Jesus rode on the ass. Well, he didn't have to ride an ass. Jesus could have done whatever the hell he wanted to, but he chose to ride on a well-known vehicle of transportation at that time.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
If I'm riding
Well,
on ass, I'm probably going to choose Megan Thee Stallion. I'm just saying. Just
not a bad
saying.
choice. Not a
She's
bad
a
choice.
thought. All right, she's a thought. That's besides the point.
Going all the way back to, I guess we'll hit kind of. There's probably like three main options as to what people think these are. Starting in 1947, the famous Roswell crash. It is truly an extraterrestrial advanced civilization that are basically studying us, that are watching us, and they started showing up around the time of basically us being able to use nuclear weapons. I was listening to a podcast, and they had a very famous UFO researcher on there, and his contention was that they are extraterrestrials. They're from a different solar system, basically. I think one of the famous ones that people often refer to is Zeta Reticuli, and that is a named system that we know of. But his contention was that they're from there, and that basically when we set off the first nuclear weapon, it somehow or another it interacted with the rest of the galaxy. Like it worries them in a significant way, and it also may potentially damage them or their part of the galaxy in some way, like a chain reaction type thing.
Or
That's
they
kind
one
of
day plan on consuming our planet and don't want us to destroy it first.
that could be it too. Yeah, yeah. There's some dark theories about what it is and what they want. But yeah, the standard model is that. And so there's a great story. Have you guys heard the story about Eisenhower with the aliens?
Eisenhower with the aliens?
Yeah.
I want to say I'm familiar with this, where he had saw them as a boy.
No, this is a good one. So Eisenhower
I don't know what the
is
hell I'm talking about then.
no. I mean, he may have. Reagan famously said that he saw a
Reagan was a
UFO.
believer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So Eisenhower is president, obviously, right after the Second World War. He is on a vacation playing golf. In the middle of the night, he disappears from the little bungalow that he was staying in. Secret Service has no idea where he is. Nobody knows where he is. And that part's actually been documented. There are files that show that he was unaccounted for a certain amount of time. The cover story was, or the official story, maybe it's true, is that he had a dental emergency and couldn't sleep because they ate quail that night for supper that they had hunted, and they bit down on a BB from a shotgun shell, cracked a tooth or filling or whatnot. So he had to find they had to find a dentist, get him out of bed, 2, 3 in the morning, blah, blah, blah. That was the story. The theory is, and there's been whistleblowers, there's been 2 deathbed confessions by officers, Air Force officers that were supposedly present during this. The conspiracy theory story goes that a UFO actually landed at an Air Force base. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the Air Force base off the top of my head, but I believe it was out west. That they actually landed there, and they were like, we probably need to call the president. So the president comes, and he has a meeting with aliens, and these particular aliens, and again, and there's three or four different kind that people typically talk about. These kind are called the Nordics. So they imagine like a really tall Nazi, like good looking, blonde hair, blue eyes, but like 7 or 8 feet tall. So supposedly he had
one of those. I mean, only 6 feet tall. Blonde hair, blue eyes, good looking.
Nordic.
Yeah.
He's Vikingish.
The Nordics.
I like it.
So supposedly he had a meeting with these Nordics, and they said, listen, there are other species, so to speak, of extraterrestrials that are interacting with humans. Some are good, some are not good. One of the ones that are not good are supposedly the reptilians, and they it's not like a giant walking lizard per se, but they have like a reptilian type shape to their face. Their skin is more leathery like that. Basically, the bad guys.
Elon Musk. Oh, go ahead.
Elon Musk. There you go. So supposedly, and that goes into, there's a theory that they were working with Nazi Germany during the war, that they were giving them technology and so on and so forth. But it kind of, all that plays into it. But so the Nordics met with Eisenhower and they said, listen, we're going to give you technology that will basically heal people, like insane medical technology. We'll give you free energy technology. No more gas, no more any kind of pollution, no more starvation, basically, because energy is the key to everything. We'll give you all this, but you got to get rid of the nukes. Like, you can't have them. And so supposedly Eisenhower thought about it for a couple of days, and he came back and said no. He said, I can't do it.
What?
And he said, listen, I'm in the middle of a Cold War with Russia that also has nukes. How am I going to go to the American people and go, yeah, never mind, we're not doing this. We're just going to trash all these nukes. Everything will be cool.
Because we have alien technology that's way better.
Yes.
That's what you tell them.
I'm like,
exactly.
Did you go talk to Khrushchev or whoever was in charge at the time in Russia? Let him go first.
Well, there's also the idea that, you're talking to this 8-foot tall blonde guy from a different planet. And they're like, hey, man, pinky swear promise, if you give up your most powerful weapon, I'll give you all this cool stuff.
Good point.
So that, that does play into it. But again, at that point in time, we didn't know the capabilities of their technology per se, like we supposedly kind of understand better now. Like nukes to them, I don't think would be anything because of how fast they can travel. And in fact, there's stories all around about them showing up over nuclear facilities and shutting down, like you couldn't launch the nuclear weapons if you wanted to. They've shut down nuclear silos in Montana and other areas like that. They're super interested in the nukes for whatever reason. But that is that's kind of the story of how the government got involved with extraterrestrials. So there was negotiation back and forth, and then supposedly Eisenhower settled on a deal where we're going to keep our nukes, you keep your technology, but you can come here, you can do scientific studies, but you cannot reveal yourself to humanity because it will cause a societal collapse.
If this is the case, which, could very well be, to think that far ahead in the middle of the night, if you wake me up in the middle of the night and like, hey, I'm going to go meet this guy and I need y'all to come up with a deal where we discuss nuclear weapons and all this, but you're talking to an alien. The whole time I'd just be sitting there like, what? Dude, is anybody seeing this? Like, is this an alien? This ain't, what are you talking nuclear weapon deals? I'm not getting in no damn NATO right now. Like, what the hell? That tells you why if this is the case, while somebody like an Eisenhower should be president and I should not, because I'd be freaking the F out. I'd be like, hold on a second now. Let's think about this.
There's probably some other reasons too.
I'm sure, but it's just the matter of fact that wish Matt's sitting there going like, he thought at that moment, we can't do that. I'm like, who thinks in that moment when you woke up to an 8-foot Sean Bradley looking alien looking at you? I'm like, what the hell?
So Matt has essentially uncovered that Dwight D. Eisenhower may have been the least effective negotiator ever.
Perhaps. He couldn't get a tree taken out of Augusta National. I know he tried to negotiate that, and it didn't work in his favor.
Nobody gets shit done at Augusta National unless Augusta National wants it done.
Yeah.
Even
the aliens won't go there.
I wonder if he was like, hey, I got some aliens that'll come down and zap that tree. Some bitch, but ain't gonna happen. But I'm just saying, that's amazing. The stuff that probably they deal with on a daily basis, like all this information. Clearly, there's something out of this world that a lot of presidents know about, but yet still keep somewhat mum about. I know they keep them out of the loop in some things, but it would be hard for me to go about my daily life knowing that something like that actually does exist and not bringing it up damn near every day.
Yeah, I couldn't suppose from all the information I've kind of gathered together from reading and all this kind of stuff. It looks like certain presidents are read in on this, certain ones are not. And that varies based on who controls, like there's not a certain criteria for it. Because it's my opinion that the government doesn't even control this anymore. Supposedly right after Roswell, all of this was farmed out as the years progressed, I should say. All of this started to be farmed out to Lockheed Martin, Boeing, like these military contractors. And there's good reason for that. The initial thinking is they can't, there's no information that anyone can find, like in modern day FOIA requests. Like we can't FOIA Boeing or Lockheed Martin. So there's not really any ongoing new research that we could get or information that we could get from the government because they don't have it. It's controlled by these contractors. And to a large degree, I think they control a huge part of the government. So again, some presidents know more than others. One president that supposedly knew a lot was Nixon. So think about Nixon being in the administration with Eisenhower. Then he thinks he's going to go into the presidency, and then JFK's father gets the mob to basically
by Illinois,
stuff the ballot box in Chicago, closest election in U.S. history. Now Nixon's out, Kennedy's in. This ties back into our first episode talking about the Kennedy assassination. One of the wild theories of the Kennedy assassination is maybe it wasn't LBJ, the Cubans, the Russians, the mafia. Maybe it wasn't any of that. Maybe it was the deep state and the contractors trying to keep this technology secret because it was well known that Kennedy wanted to work with Khrushchev and denuclearize, but also share information that each country had regarding UFO sightings and any potential crash retrievals that each country had. And when you're sitting on, like, imagine this technology, virtual instantaneous travel. It's the most powerful weapon you can imagine ever creating. Like, imagine putting a nuke on that thing. No place on the planet is safe, and you can't defend that. Like, they could just show up in Moscow the second they take off, roughly the second they take off from Montana, and Moscow's gone, and they would never even know it. Like, they would never see it. There's no defense for it. There's nothing.
That's crazy.
So that could never be allowed to get out.
Have you seen, which I saw it on a 60 Minutes years ago, and I hope they've updated it by now, but did you know that the nuclear weapon, the little codes and everything, were on floppy disks?
There's a lot of stuff that I remember when Elon was still allowed to do the Doge thing, that he went in there and was like, oh my God, like these computers are literally from the late 80s, early 90s.
And they're holding nuclear weapons capabilities. That's just unreal.
Now, I will say there may be like a crazy like a fox, twisted genius to that.
Well, in that crack it.
Yeah, you got to physically take it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you can't like hack into that stuff.
No, you can't. But so moving forward with Nixon, so Nixon gets in, and this is my favorite UFO story of all. So Nixon gets in, and he is really good friends with Jackie Gleason, Smoking the Bandit, the whole deal. Really good friends with Jackie. Jackie Gleason is obsessed with UFOs. He thinks he saw one. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. So the story goes that they're playing golf one day. Jackie and Nixon are playing golf one day.
Is it
They're
true that
knocking
they
back
had
beers like crazy.
Is it true they had a Diablo sandwich and a Dr. Pepper?
And a Dr. Pepper and
Smoking the Bandit
make
joke,
it
Greg. You don't
snappy.
get that. You don't get that. Greg, do you know what I'm talking about?
It's been 30-something years since I've seen Smokey and the Bandit.
Damn shame.
I never
should
got
be
into the cult classic
should be
way.
a yearly watch. Should be a yearly watch by you, sir. Sorry, Matt. My apologies.
Greg's
for
not
my
a
friend
fan
here,
of the
Greg.
classic cinema.
He don't know good. He don't go no good cinema is what he doesn't know.
I'm telling y'all, until I was probably 16, 17 years old, I don't know that I watched anything other than live sports. That's all I recall growing up.
I can't argue with that. That's a good thing, but still.
That's not bad.
Anyways, go ahead, Matt. Apologize
So-
to my friend.
No, so they are. I've dealt with Greg for years. I know what a pain in the butt he is. So they're having a day, man. They're knocking back drinks, playing golf, blah blah blah. They call it a day. Jackie gets home. He's kicked off his shoes. He's in his easy chair. Gets a call. It's the White House. You take a call from the president. Absolutely. Goes, hey Jackie, you want to see some weird shit? He's like, always. He said, cool. We'll pick you up shortly. Picks him up, takes him to Wright Pat Air Force Base. Nixon's driving. It's just them two. There's no Secret Service. There's nothing. So imagine the security guard gate at Wright Pat, like some 18-year-old kid is standing there like at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning on guard duty. This black car pulls up, lets down the window. It's Nixon and Jackie Gleason. You're like, what the hell is happening? And he's like, hey, I'm the president. Let me in. So they let him in, and supposedly he shows him everything. Bodies, craft, everything. And this story comes from Jackie Gleason's wife at the time. She did not tell this until after he passed away. So the story goes, he got home and he locks himself in his bedroom and basically doesn't come out, doesn't speak to anybody for like 2 or 3 days. That he is just mentally broken.
That's got to blow your mind if you see all that
He's
stuff.
so obsessed with it that he built a house in upstate New York that looks just like a UFO. In fact, it was on the market. It was for sale about 2 or 3, 4 years ago. But it is round. It looks just like a UFO. It's a super cool house. But he was obsessed with it his entire life. Greg, you're muted.
You're muted, Greg. You're muted. He says, I want to come out as gay. That's what he's saying right now. You're muted.
Yeah, 'cause
You're
I'm an
muted.
idiot, and every time I had a coughing fit, I was trying to not blush over that. What I was trying to get at is, can you imagine, and again, Jackie Gleason was a famous celebrity, so he dealt with a little bit of knowing how to handle weird situations, but think about having access to that type of knowledge, that type of information, and knowing that you can't share it with anybody, A, because you're probably signed some sort of NDA and not legally allowed to, but B, even if you do, nobody's going to believe it, and they're going to think you're an asshole and a nut job. Like, how do you process that other than go lock yourself in a room for 3 days?
Would you want to know, or just
Yes.
even though you couldn't tell anyone?
I am a proponent of the truth, and wherever possible, if something is true and factual and real, I want to know.
I couldn't keep it in. I would blab. I would blab all day. I'd be like, y'all ain't gonna believe this.
The Disclosure Podcast. It's new. Check it out. So yeah, it almost drove him crazy. Now there's a funny like little side conspiracy theory to this, and that is that Nixon told him because he needed money to pay off the burglar team for Watergate. And he needed untraceable cash. He couldn't run it through a bank account or anything like that.
Should have went crypto. He should have went crypto.
Beside the
little
point.
Bitcoin.
Then you move forward a little bit further. You get to maybe the saddest presidential disclosure story, which is Jimmy Carter. Now, this was a confession from a staffer that was there in the White House and that came into the Oval right after this happened. So not supposedly, but Jimmy Carter did run one of the planks in his platform was disclosure. He said, I'm going to find out what's going on, and I'm going to tell the world. So he gets
Unless
in there.
You want to know about my brother Billy and him getting money from the overseas, but go ahead.
No, sir.
Politicians lied even 45 years ago.
Oh, yeah. So he pushes and pushes and pushes and gets stonewalled. Finally, supposedly, one day, not on his schedule, some high up generals come in and they say, we need a minute with the president. Close the door. And there's no record of what they told him. But supposedly when the staffer opened the door after the meeting was over, his face was in his hands and he was crying because of what they told him. And later on, that same staffer somehow or another through the grapevine found out that it was about extraterrestrial disclosure. One of the things that always struck me about that, and it plays into a really dark theory, is that Jimmy Carter being so religious.
I was about to say, I had to mess with him.
Yeah, they told him something
that's the case.
Yeah, that basically shattered his view of religion. And that's one thing that Bob Lazar said, is that he was told, now he will say, they gave all of us real information and they gave us fake information. And they gave us both on purpose so that if something leaked out, like they only told, like I would only tell Greg that the aliens are purple, and I would only tell David that they're yellow. And then all of a sudden, if it leaks out that they're yellow, well, I know David leaked it. I know Greg didn't leak that because Greg didn't know.
Probably be the case. I would tell him immediately.
Yeah, so he freely admits this may not be true, but he was told that there is a book, and he won't even go into it other than this little tidbit, and the whole book was on religion. And he said that basically the aliens use us as containers. And he's been asked, container for what? And he said, I don't know. Maybe it's souls. But he said, it's just, I was told containers. You know, I've always thought that that's probably, if they did tell Carter something like that, that would be a perfect thing to tell him, that we're basically, we were seeded here, and that we're basically a science experiment, and that would break his will to dig any deeper, and he certainly wouldn't put that out.
Man. And you wonder where all these science movies come from, where you see stuff like that does happen, where it shows us as being containers for other bodies. There may be some truth to some of it. It's got to come from somewhere, and it can't just be some weed at the middle of the night in the 60s. Stories have came from somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about Jimmy Carter and his faith and how much he leaned on his religion, and that's an element that I think is part of what makes it such an odd topic, is because I think so many people draw that instant correlation that if aliens are real, then my faith can't be true. And y'all both know me. I am a devout Christian. I try to live my entire life by that, and I don't necessarily believe that has to be the case. I don't think that. It's a funny analogy, but the Bible doesn't specifically mention emus, but I know emus exist. Like, just because life on other planets or life outside of this world isn't mentioned in the Bible doesn't make the Bible invariably untrue if we come across that. Now, granted, if you talk about, using aliens and they're telling you that there was no creation story, that they were the creator, that they planted us here, and that gives you some pause and some cause for question. But I think a lot of people just immediately discount the idea of life out of this earth because of their religious beliefs, and I don't think the two have to be mutually exclusive.
No, they don't. I do ask everybody though. There is kind of a linchpin in that, or kind of, I don't really know how to describe, but basically, say aliens landed tomorrow, and they held a press conference. They're taking questions, and somebody stands up and goes, "Well, do you have a God? What is your creation story? What do you think?" Now, they could say something. This has always been kind of my thing with when I talk to other Christians that say, well, there can't be aliens, or if aliens exist, it doesn't disprove the Bible, and it definitely doesn't. But this is the one thing that would be problematic. If they gave, now again, they could give 5 or 10 different creation stories just like humans would give. But if they don't have one, in my opinion, and it doesn't have to be Jesus, they could call him Scott. Listen, Scott was sent by God to be a perfect sacrifice for our shortcomings and our failures and our sins. We killed him, and like, if they don't have that, then that's a massive problem, because that leaves you with only 2 options, realistically. And those 2 options are either our Christian belief system is real, but we were the only civilization that God chose to redeem, which I have a major issue with, or our belief system is wrong.
I don't want to get off topic and discuss theology over aliens, because this is an alien show, but
well, it goes hand in hand.
Why would it be hard to believe that we would be the only redeeming life form if, like, we believe that Christians are the only redeeming human life form? Like, there are people on this very planet that I don't believe God will redeem because they don't believe in him.
Right, but but in the Christian doctrine, they have a choice. So if you created a planet with people that are infinitely smarter than us, or creatures infinitely smarter than us, that you would think have a soul, an eternal soul and all that, and you never had any contact with them, you never gave them a chance, that's problematic. So imagine you died and you went to heaven and you're standing in front of Scott instead of Jesus. And Scott goes, hey man, you didn't accept me. And you go, bro, you never even came to my planet. We didn't have a Bible. We had a book that talked about Jesus. We didn't have the DVD that you sent to Alpha Centauri that told us that Scott was the real, you see what I'm saying? If there's not at least a story from a different planet that aligns with the story of failure, sin, and redemption, I've always found that problematic, because that means they were never even given a choice.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I mean, again, my counterpoint would be, how many billions of people have died on this planet that never had a chance to hear that story?
No, I agree, but the Bible takes that into account as well, because the Bible will say,
it says before Jesus comes back, every ear will hear it. But I mean, you're talking about, like, again, if we end up in the end of the world, then we're all reconciling our own shit and what we believe anyway at that point.
No, I mean, but it talks about after Jesus was crucified, he went to Hades and preached.
Your analogy was, if I die tomorrow and now I'm in front of Scott, not Jesus, and I go, hey, wait, this isn't fair, I never heard of Scott. I'm telling you, billions of people from this very planet have died and never heard of Jesus.
Yeah, and I know I've got issues with that too. But if you talk to a preacher,
that's a different episode. Let's get back to aliens.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, if you talk to a preacher, they've got a way around that. There is no way around that if it's never even been introduced to your planet.
Well, all I know is, if you want to know why I don't belong in this conversation, is because the only thing I can think of after you brought that up is how much more lame a WWSD bracelet would be compared to a WWJD. Jesus Christ, hit a curveball is all I'm saying. Scott can't hit no curveball.
Don't flow.
What would Scott do bracelet? What would Scott do bracelet is not as cool as WWJD. What would Jesus do? I'm just saying. So take that, Scott.
Take it, Scott. Suck it. So moving forward. So we jump forward from.
Sorry. Matt, I apologize for myself. I take this thing. This is a serious topic, and I can't help myself. I'm sorry. But go ahead.
No, we jump forward from, let's see where we're at. Jump forward from Carter to H.W. Bush. So H.W. Bush, there was a recent interview with Eric Davis. Now he's a astrophysicist that has worked for the government on tons of top secret projects.
And
So
speaking of
he
hitting the
comes forward and
curveball,
he says
Eric Davis
there
could
was
hit a curveball back in the day.
so he comes forward and
44 for the
says
Reds.
he comes forward and says in 1964 he was told a story. Well, he comes forward and says that H.W. Bush, when he was president, told him a story that in 1964 at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, 3 UFOs landed and interacted. The entities got off the ships and interacted with Air Force and CIA personnel, and that they were also the Nordic type. That story basically lines up with the Eisenhower story. So he has said as recently as last week or 2 weeks ago that from the mouth of the sitting president at the time, he told me that it is not unusual occurrence for them to land and meet with government officials at Air Force bases. And in fact, he knows for a fact that it happened. And remember in the first episode with Greg, we was talking about JFK, H.W. Bush was head of the CIA before he was president. So he knows where all the bodies are buried, so to speak.
Where all the bodies are buried, where J. Edgar Hoover kept his women's clothes. Mm-hmm.
That's right. So,
by the way, did you know was it J. Edgar Hoover who also had the Martin Luther King, all those tapes of him with other women and stuff?
Yeah, that gets yeah, there's some bad stuff in there.
I apologize.
I've
heard some bad rumors that involve Martin Luther King or his associates in a room, that there's audio. Not good audio is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, MLK is not who everybody portrays him to be, but he's not an alien, so let's talk
Just because you're a great civil rights leader does not mean you're a great husband, is all I'm going to say.
So,
and also, Oswald, he did shoot. He may have been involved. He probably didn't the only shooter, but I do think he was a shooter. And what gets left out is the fact that he did kill a cop after he was going to the movie theaters, and that poor cop does not get any credit for being killed, basically.
Supposedly. So that was Officer Tippett, yes. And there's actually supposedly from Representative Paula Luna from Florida.
And
supposedly,
Anna
Paula Luna. So supposedly she has seen a photograph that she says is in FBI possession that shows Oswald on the street during the shooting, and that he was never actually even in the movie theater. But again, we digress. So she actually said that about a month ago.
Part 2 coming up soon.
Part 2 coming up, the update. Yeah. So anyway, let's jump ahead to Clinton. So Clinton takes office, really wants to find out. He's again running for president. He's like, I'm going to find out what's going on. And Hillary herself came out and said, listen, we pushed for that so hard until we were basically threatened and said that you're going to stop. You're going to stop pushing for this information to come out.
If you can threaten the Clintons, that's impressive, because Lord knows Greg still don't understand how mute works. He still don't know how mute works. If you can threaten Clintons, because Lord knows they'll kill you in a heartbeat. So the fact that they were scared means it was some legit threats, if that's the case.
Hillary was probably just concerned about infidelity and thinking if Bill found hold of aliens, he'd be trying to get with them.
He's banging an alien. That's happening. You best believe it. Especially if it's 8 foot tall and Nordic. Oh, yeah.
Or that one from Total Recall, had like 6 boobs on the front or something. He'd be into that.
Yes. Total Recall? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Ah.
Another cinema classic Greg hadn't seen.
The more the merrier.
I got that one. I know Total Recall. And it was 3 boobs, not 6.
Oh, 6. Okay, there you go. See, they grow in my mind.
You must have been trying to pause on that scene back when the little VHS and the four-headed thing would double it up for you. So you saw 6 boobs, but most of us only saw 3 as we watched it clean.
That's
It
exactly
only took
right.
one, but I was glad there was 2 extras.
So anyway, so that disclosure attempt kind of died, and then that leads into more modern times with Trump and the people testifying in front of Congress, congressmen getting involved. There's a lot of great documentaries out about disclosure right now, and a lot of them interview sitting congressmen. Tim Burchett's one of them that they interviewed. A bunch of different ones. So, like I said, like we've talked about it was always kind of a kook fringe thing, and now it's moved into kind of more respectable area. Marco Rubio has even been interviewed on recent documentaries about it, saying that something's there. And so now we wait, right? So Trump asked that UFO files be released. There was supposed to be 48 clear videos of UFOs released a couple weeks ago. Again, this is a big push from Congresswoman Luna. She's pushing on that. She called the Department of War and they said, oh, we didn't get the memo. So now supposedly she's working directly with Hegseth, although he's got a shit show going on. So I'm sure this is the last thing on his mind.
He's got a lot going
But
on now.
they're supposedly going to release those soon.
Do you recall when Trump came up with Space Force and he was laughed out of the building thinking how silly it was?
Yeah.
Now how does it look? I mean, my man might have been on to something. If we haven't making a Space Force, he knew something, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Tried to make him look silly, tried to make him look stupid, but now
So
you're going to be glad we have Space Force.
What do y'all think are the odds? And I'm with you. Obviously, in the last decade and a half, 20 years or so, it does seem like this is starting to become a lot more of a mainstream, comfortable topic, and a lot more, like you said, sitting Congress people, sitting, politicians are opening up and discussing it. I'm a bit of obviously I'm a conspiracy theory guy, but hell, most of the conspiracy theories I've believed in the last 5 or 6 years have ended up being pretty damn true. But is there an option that maybe you'd look at all this and go, man, is all this new information and all this new fervor about something like this, is this just a smokescreen to keep us from digging on stuff they actually don't want us to follow up? Because if you keep floating out a bunch of shit like this and we can't ever really get our hands on anything tangible, man, Americans as a whole are pretty ignorant, stupid. We'll run our own selves in circles for 10, 15 years with this shit. And the government will move so far past us while we're trying to figure out if this is real that they're working on stuff that we don't have any clue about. So, I mean, we've all seen, or I say we all, I have actually, I will admit, I have never had any sort of UFO, UAP interaction at all. Maybe I'm the only one on the planet. I'm not saying from time to time I hadn't drank a little too much and thought I saw something weird, but that was probably my own damn fault. But I mean, it's tied in. It's kind of like the Bigfoot argument. I go, man, I want to believe in Bigfoot, but damn, how do we not have a body by now? How does some drunk, trigger-happy hunter not put one down and have this? Like, I'm sorry. I like the way we do this, but if I can find a Bigfoot, I'm putting a hole in his head. I am framing him, and I am rich as hell because I proved his existence. It's just hard for me to imagine that if there's this much stuff out there and this many people have had access to this type of documentation and evidence, somewhere somebody would have tried to get rich or do something with it. Or is that where the CIA comes in and they just shut that shit down as soon as it gets legs?
Are you trying to say, sorry, Matt, are you trying to say that you don't think that Bigfoot not only exists, but is smart enough to know when somebody has a cell phone or not, and not to get caught in those photographs and all that? I think that's fully the case. They have the capability to know that who has a phone and who doesn't. I say sarcastically, that is ridiculous. People that still, if you still think Bigfoot, Matt, I apologize if I'm offending you, but if you still believe in Bigfoot, I got some serious issues.
I actually, bro. I don't believe in Bigfoot at all. but that is a good point. That is a good point. So you mentioned about can know when a picture is being taken. One of the things that Bob Lazar said, and this again makes a lot of sense. Like everybody's like, well, why is every photograph weird or grainy or whatever? He said when he stood under the craft, when it was floating, he looked up and could not see it. He said you can see it from the side, but not like normal. That bubble that encapsulates the craft basically almost obscures the craft to a large degree anyway. And that would perfectly explain why a lot of the photographs of UFOs are not good. They're basically
If I was going to have the technology to fly to another planet and observe, which I think that's kind of what they're doing, is observing us. I think one of my things I would be worried about is camouflage. Just say it. So it would make sense that they find a way, if they can get the technology to fly to another planet and travel at that crazy amount of speed, somebody probably had to be like, hey, maybe we wouldn't want to be seen. So that if they can create that, I'm sure they can create a way where you can't hardly see the damn things.
Yeah, and I think that's probably just a natural byproduct of being able to, again, create that force field, so to speak, around the craft. I don't even know that was specifically intended, but that is the result of it. Obviously, if you have something like that can move you through water without getting wet, or, they say even they can move through a wall, that it's completely a transmedium process, that I would assume that would affect the vision or the sight of the object itself.
Yeah.
But before we get into kind of what you guys think is going on, or what it kind of the option of that was kind of a rundown of the history. I just want to mention, if anybody's out there listening, they want to dig in a little deeper, they want to do a bunch of reading, there's really 3 great documentaries that are out right now. The first one is Bob Lazar and Area 51. That's a great documentary. That is just his specific story. I believe that one's on Amazon. And then there's another one called The Phenomenon, which is, I think that one is free now. Also, I think on Amazon. And then one that I just bought a few weeks ago is The Age of Disclosure, that finally came out. It was at Cannes Film Festival, got rave reviews, and waited for like a year and a half, 2 years for it to come out. That one's excellent. Now that one's got interviews with Tim Burchett and Marco Rubio and all that's in there as well. So those are 3 real good ones. Check those out if you want to dig in a little deeper. But so that's kind of, like I said, that's the history of kind of from where it started to where we are now. Now, what can it be?
I mean, I'll take the first stab at putting my thoughts on the line. And again, obviously, I draw everything back to my faith. And when I was first starting that pursuit, I sat down with somebody who I know to be far smarter and wiser than I am. And my whole thing was, man, it's hard to believe in something that you can't understand or explain. And he looked at me, he goes, do you understand calculus? Can you explain calculus? No.
I believe in women, and I can't understand them.
Yeah, I believe calculus is real. So, I mean, the fact that I can't explain it or understand what's happening out there, it doesn't cause me to shut down and go, well, there's just nothing happening. I'm not going to pick my head in the sand and pretend like nothing's out there. There's a lot of things I think that are going on that are really hard to define, especially with the limited and understanding and comprehensive abilities that we possess. I mean, when you see things that clearly go against the known laws of physics, it's hard to even know where to begin with something like that. When you have, again, I'm almost 50 years old. If you see something that immediately challenges everything you've ever thought or believed for that long a period of time, it just becomes hard to even know where to start.
Space is so big for me and so vast, I can't fathom the idea of how it works. I can't even put, my brain doesn't wrap around how vast it is. I like to go with the conspiracy theories and think that, perhaps we may have landed on the moon, but that wasn't the real footage. I like all that good stuff. But when it comes to aliens, I can't say there's not nothing. There's something. Because like we said earlier, it ain't old Bobby or Billy Bob out in the middle of the desert that's seeing stuff. It's real people, real Air Force pilots and stuff that are seeing things that are unexplainable to them. Do I think some of the things that we saw back in the day were our own aircraft that we were working on that being released before that? Yeah, of course, that's the case in some instances. But there's something out there. Something's fishy. By the way, did you see I just added a little chat thing? Now I know how we got a little chat gimmick.
Speaking of fishy, that's always been the analogy I've drawn to the whole alien abduction thing. Can you imagine being a fish, just swimming around with your buddy fish, and all of a sudden you see that worm and you bite that hook and you get yanked up into a whole different dimension, and then you get thrown back in and you're trying to explain to all your fish friends what just happened? They got to think you're nuts.
Yeah, and I always, when I catch a fish, immediately put my finger in his butt. That's how anal probe. Everybody knows that. That's what you do.
Greg saw that South Park. He knows exactly how that works.
All right, listen. Space. Would you go to space or would you go to the bottom of the ocean if you had your choice?
Neither.
That's not the choice, Matthew. The choices are you either go space or you go to the bottom of the ocean. All right, listen. I would say space originally because the idea of going to the bottom of the ocean is terrifying, especially when you're in that little capsule. Those people that went to go see Titanic, dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. That's another episode, but I was like, there's no way I'm getting in that little last capsule. But having seen the Artemis people come back from going around the moon and the thing that they fell down to Earth in, crunched in like that, I would die of a heart attack. So if I had to choose, I'd say space, but man, give me something bigger to come back in. Don't give me that little tight ass shit.
I think either answer is going to lead to some unfounded questions because there is a whole lot of shit we don't know about either space or the bottom of the ocean.
Some say there's a calling card, so to speak, in the bottom of the ocean that's for aliens that gets released.
Well, there's somebody made a good point. They said if you were visiting Earth and you had a truly transmedium form of travel, that's exactly where you'd hide. Because we can't even go to the bottom of the ocean in some areas. So that does make perfect sense. So I don't know. I've been kicking this around for a while, and I
hope after all this information that you gave us, great information, I hope that you look at us and say, I don't believe in none of it. I think it's all lies.
I think
that would be hilarious.
Yeah, it's all bullcrap. Now there's a great podcast called the Y Files, like X Files, but it's Y. So it's Y Files. Great podcast. And a lot of times he will pick a story and he'll get you really into it. And you're like, oh my God, that's true. And then at the very end, he just debunks the whole thing. Goes, this is why it's not true.
Speaking of podcast, I can't recommend these highly enough, but Common Sense Superheroes, Front Porch with David, Beliefs, Ballots, and Bets. You should all be checking these.
Information is
great quality content.
Information is A1. Not one mistake has ever been made on any of those shows. So not
if
one.
If you listen to Weird Friends, you should check those out too.
Now look, listen. What is the deal? Have you heard about what is the deal with these scientists that are coming up missing?
That's what I was going to say. Like, yeah, there's, what is it, 13 now?
Yeah, hang on a second. I'm too worried. I'm a little worried about, I don't know, I don't want to get messed up, so go ahead.
Well, I think it's up to 13 now that's missing. And then last night, a podcaster that is like, I never listened to him, to be honest with you, but he's supposedly like a really, really big deal in, the disclosure movement. He just committed suicide in front of a bunch of cops. And like his last podcast was the night before he did that. And he was talking about how grateful he was to be alive and this, that, and other. And then all of a sudden, cops, I think this was in maybe New Mexico, Arizona, somewhere out there, but they get a call. He comes to his house. They come to his house, and all of a sudden he runs out of his house just acting out of his mind and blows his head off in front of everybody. Now, that's the same
come up missing. The scientists that go missing, they leave their phones, they leave everything that you would take from the house with you, and they just left.
Yeah, and one of them is, I was just reading about this lady yesterday, Amy Eskridge. She was an anti-gravity propulsion researcher, and she's gone. And a month before she disappeared, she was posting pictures online of her hands that look like they've just been stuck into a fire, like they're beat red. But that's the
Have they
only
looked
thing on her
up?
body.
Have they looked up for her? Because I mean, if it's anti-gravity, she might have just
Yeah,
she might have figured it out. Is all I'm saying.
she may have got it. But
I consider that job well done.
yeah, but she said she was being targeted by a direct energy weapon, and she was getting like red all over her body, her hands in particular. And then she a month later she was found dead, shot in the head.
Isn't that what we threatened, or was it sound that we threatened Maduro with in Venezuela?
Man, we
Some of the
threatened
rumors going around
with
they used some
everything.
kind of energy weapon that they were going to use. All this time we saw the fart gun on the Looney Tunes, and now they basically have made it with energy. Saying fishy stuff.
It's probably alien technology.
I bet it is.
It may be.
Right.
There is if you look at a chart, or if you kind of chart it out, kind of the exponential increase in technology, it all kind of leads back to Roswell, like that time frame. Like everything just explodes after that. Transistor radios, microchips, like all kind of stuff, like everything getting smaller and more powerful. It all kind of there's a lot of ties back to that time frame. Now, I don't know. That's not necessarily proof, but it is odd that in all of recorded history before this, all of a sudden technology just explodes, and it's never really done that
The
in
last
the
100
past.
years have been insane as far as what is, the technology that's came about.
Now that's another theory that of what these things are, is they're actually us that escaped the planet, because they do know that there were various cataclysms. Like one of them, I believe, was a super volcano exploded. I was reading about this a while back, and the population of the planet got down to like 1,200 people at one point in time.
Golly. Isn't that weird to think about? That like a whole planet, you're like, we got 1,200 of us.
Yep.
You're like, I guess I got to bang Martha over here. I don't want to bang the other one, but you got to.
So you think about stories of Atlantis, you think about, like, we still don't know how they built the pyramids. I mean, they'll give you a story about, oh, it's just a bunch of slaves. Well, none of that adds up, right? Like moving those blocks hundreds of miles, and placed in perfect position, and how it lines up with the stars and everything. Like, we don't understand.
Not to mention what's under all the pyramids below the surface. Like there's no way that 3,000 years ago those people were doing that. That doesn't compute.
No, and somebody made a good point the other day. I was listening to a show, and they're like, well, if we disappeared, and there used to be a show on the History Channel called Life After People, which was great, because it would show you, like, in 5 years, this is what New York would look like if nobody's maintaining the buildings and the roads. And dude, it will blow your mind, because in very short order, there's nothing left of us, especially technology wise. Like, all of our technology's gone. So
And the pyramids will still stand.
yeah. So, but if there was a race of humans that was more advanced than us that could escape the planet, say 10 million years ago or whatever, and a cataclysm happened, and they escaped, and almost everybody else got wiped out, we wouldn't have any record of their technology. Like, think about this, and this is another thing I'm stealing from somebody else, but like, if I was transported back to ancient Rome with it, and they asked me, like, what's the future like? I'd be like, oh, well, they got these iPhones. They're like, cool, what's that? I was like, well, it's a phone. And they could say, well, how's it work? Dude, I don't know. It's like a plastic box with glass, and I can look in it, and I can see my buddy Greg he's talking to me. I can't build that. I can't recreate. I can't even explain how it works. It's like magic. I don't know.
The sad thing is, and I've actually had this thought, because it actually goes way simpler than, I mean, an iPhone's pretty technologically complex, but there's some pretty simple devices that you could put me on a desert isle all by myself with every tool and resource I need, and I still don't know if I could survive.
I can't even put together a Lego. You give me the Lego with the instructions, I can't put it together. So I damn sure ain't putting together like it. the professor can make a radio, but he can't patch that damn hole in Gilligan's Island. That's all I'm saying.
And there we go.
He didn't
All right,
believe.
let's start wrapping this up. Let's Matt, let's start with you. What are we going to talk about on episode 3 of Weird Friends?
Episode 3 of Weird Friends. I was thinking about going with the phantom time hypothesis. Are y'all interested? Have you ever heard about that?
Never heard, but I'm interested.
So I thought about going with how time is not linear, but that kind of plays in too much with the. I thought we'd zig and zag a little bit, right? So it's not all in the same vein. Phantom time hypothesis is the theory that there are centuries of recorded history that never existed. It's completely made up by the church, the Catholic Church, maybe some royal families, and they did it in thumbnail sketches. They did it in order to obtain rights to land, to say basically that their people have been there for hundreds of years, that they basically have the deed to this land, they have the right to this land, and they could genocide the people off of that property that was already there.
Well, the Royals,
I like that because I can take that and apply that to some current day stuff. I think that's a good one for episode 3 because that will. I mean, I think we're witnessing a ton of that right now. I won't get into it, but we all know the old story. You know, history is written by the winners, and with all of the misinformation and malicious information we've all uncovered in the last 5 or 6 years, it starts to really make you think, man, what if all that shit in the history books and there's so many different stories to even stuff that just happened 10 years ago. How do we know that what we've been told happened 3,000 years ago was written down correctly and wasn't just the narratives told by the winners? So I like that subject. I think we can roll with that. David,
Greg,
what are you getting into on the next Front Porch episode?
Greg, how do you have a friend like Matt that talks about that, and then you got me talking about Gilligan's Island? Like, he is so far above. I'm like, this is so out of my element. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, I don't know. I appreciate your scope of friends that you got there, because we are not the same.
I've been an eclectic individual. I like a little bit of a lot of different things. I have told people I have very little depth anywhere, but I am shallow and wide. I got a little bit of everything covered.
I mean, he just went full on like centuries away. I'm like, what? I couldn't even spell what he's talking about.
So now we know what you're talking about on your next Front Porch episode.
I'm talking about how I can't spell. I may talk about the Royals. The Royals will take some stuff now. All them jewels, guess what? They mostly came from Africa. They haters is all I'm saying. I'm not saying Meghan Markle was right, but she wasn't wrong. Matt, moon landing. Did we land or not? I'll leave it at that.
Not a chance.
See, Greg? See what I'm saying?
See what I'm saying? I think we could have sent, it's possible to send a probe, maybe. I don't know.
Probes again.
But dude, man, the more you look, so the moon landing is Santa Claus for adults. I mean, dude, you look at that and it's just a joke. There's so much. I could spend 4 hours on this. If anybody's interested in it, look up Bart Zabrell. He's the main researcher on that. He's the one that Buzz Aldrin punched in the face, I think, when he tried to give him a swear on the Bible that he landed.
I love it.
It's absurd. You called the president from the moon in the 60s.
Come on, man.
Get the hell out of here. Man. Get out.
That's what I'm saying. See? Hey, Matt knows what he's talking about, Greg.
I have been told, and I have seen movies about all those smart black women that were running the math in the background to make all that possible.
Yeah, that's right. It was all, DEI math. Made it
flag didn't move. The flag, there's no wind on the moon, is all I'm saying. Flag shouldn't have been moving. They had the flag moving.
That'll be episode 4.
That's good. Yeah, we'll go back to space for episode 4.
David already got blown up on the internet about his takes on the moon landing.
I love it. I have no problem. I'll get blown up with anything. As long as you comment, that's all I care about. Guys, thanks for letting me come on and just piggyback on this episode. I appreciate it. I'm gonna let y'all get back to the real stuff instead of me cracking jokes, but I appreciate y'all letting me come on and spew my nonsense.
I'm glad I had some common sense superhero assistance on this one. I might have got in over my head, but Now we're going to wrap it up here, Matt. As always, brother, I appreciate it. It's always good to talk to you, and it's never dull. It's never boring. That's for sure. David, you and I will probably try to connect tomorrow for an episode of Common Sense Superheroes. In the meantime, y'all share this, like it, comment, do whatever you got to do. Engage with us on social media. You won't find me on TikTok right now, but that's a whole different episode. But get on to David's show, Front Porch with David. Follow, subscribe. It probably won't be long before Matt's throwing out a solo show because he's not going to be able to sit here and keep quiet, wait on me every week to 10 days. And if you want to follow my stuff, get on Beliefs, Ballots, and Bets or Common Sense Superheroes. Till then, we love you guys. God bless.
See you guys.